Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I am the dad who plays things, and today I thought what I would do is give y'all a brief little overview of what I think are the best single-player settings for Ark Survival Evolved in 2024. That's right, it is 2024, and we are still playing Ark Survival Evolved, and I thought if you are a single player, if you are a casual gamer, kind of like what I am, that you might be a little confused by some of these things, and I'm going to give you a little rundown on what I think are the absolute best settings and some tips and some little ideas of how you can make your gaming experience suit you better and have a much better time with your gaming. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the options setting first before we do anything. I'm on a PS4, by the way, so if you're on a different console, if you're on PC, this may look a little bit different, but a couple of things that will absolutely help your gameplay and make your gaming experience just a little bit better, in my opinion, are a couple of things here. This camera shake scale, you absolutely want to turn this all the way down, because if you come around a brontosaurus or anything big, then the camera will just start shaking and shaking and shaking, and it is almost impossible to keep track of anything, especially if you build in a place where you might have a brontosaurus come walking by your base, and all you're doing is you're just sitting trying to craft some things, and the camera starts shaking like mad. So another thing that is kind of up to you, but this default survivor items, especially in the early game, there's a ton of survivor items, and if you're going to be dying a few times, you're going to have to continue to just trash these things. Go ahead and turn that off. You'll have to do less getting rid of all the stuff whenever you die and you respawn. Another thing that you're going to want to turn off, in my opinion, is the light bloom and the light shafts, because it can make going from shadow to dark, shadow to light rather, and light to shadow a little bit more difficult, and you want to be able to see a little bit better, and it just kind of makes the picture look a little blown out depending on how you've got your gamma settings set. But those are, in my opinion, the most important settings on the options menu. Everything else is kind of up to you. But yeah, definitely turn camera shake scale all the way down and turn off the light bloom and the light shafts. All right, we're gonna go ahead and save and exit, and we're gonna go into where we're gonna set up our local game. Okay, and now let's go ahead and look through our general settings that we're gonna wanna change. Things that you absolutely wanna change is this difficulty level. It's gonna start at 0.2, which caps your dino level to like level 28. Go ahead and change this to 1. The only thing that really changes is the highest level dinosaur that you can get, and this sets it all the way up to level 150. So don't be afraid. Go ahead and set that all the way up to 1. The next thing that I would do if I'm a single player is I would set taming speed to 3. That's going to boost the amount that your dinos will tame at, and if you leave this at default setting of 1, then you could end up spending an hour and a half waiting for a mid-level parasaur to tame up. So bump that up all the way to 3 and you will be much happier. And the next thing you're going to want to change is the harvest amount. Just go ahead and set the harvest amount to 2, because this will make it a little bit easier and make the grind go a little bit faster without making it too overpowered and give you just so many resources that you have a hard time carrying everything. The next thing that I would absolutely change is your dino character health recovery. Bump that to 2, because if you get further on in the game, you want to maybe not spend an hour and a half force-feeding a T-Rex a bunch of meat just to get them to tame, because when you finally get your higher level dinos for your boss battles and everything, or you're going through maybe like the Overseer Cave, the Tech Cave, then you don't want to have to spend literally 30 to 45 minutes at a time just to regain, 5k health or whatever if your dino takes a little bit of a beating. As we keep going, we're going to go ahead and enable admin login, logging, admin logging. We're going to enable crosshair. These settings here I think are off by default, and I prefer to keep them on. The other thing you're going to want to do is turn on PvE mode. That means that whenever you have cryopods, this will turn off cryo sickness when you want to throw out your dinos around an obelisk or whatever, or if you just cryopod them, toss a couple out, it's not going to be that big of a deal. The next one is show map player location. This helps you get a better idea of where you are on the map. The next one that I will recommend, this one right here, no survivor downloads. When you first start playing, unless you're wanting to jump maps back and forth, go ahead and check this box, because once you get down to where you're going to maybe complete the map, when you go to ascend, it doesn't matter what map you're on. It did this to me on the island, it did it to me on Scorched Earth and Aberration, and on Extinction. All of the main story mode maps that I've played and completed to this point, whenever I beat the final boss, it completely wiped my character. There's a bug somewhere in the Ascension code or whatever, so if you set no survivor downloads, you will remain on the map, and your character will stay intact, and you won't have any issues, because I probably fought the Alpha Mana Core 3 or 4 times before figuring out that all I had to do was hit no survivor downloads, and that would allow me to keep my survivor and all the settings and all the levels and everything, and no further issues after that. So definitely make sure you turn no survivor downloads on whenever you are just playing a map. You can turn it off if you're gonna hop to a different map for, you know, a strategic reason, or if you just want to. There's nothing that says you can't hop maps. But before you do the Ascension boss battle, so on the island that would be the Overseer, on Scorched Earth that's the Mana Core, on Aberration that's Rockwell, on Extinction that's the King Titan, make sure before you go into that battle to turn no survivor downloads on, or else you run the risk of losing your survivor. The next one you definitely want to turn on is maximum difficulty. All that does is, regardless of the map, it sets your max level dino to 150. Because there are some maps where the default maximum dino level is lower than 150, and we just want to set that to max level because we want to have a level 150 dino if we can. I also like to check use single player settings. This is an optional one for you. If you like it to be a little more challenging, go ahead and turn that off. But I think, you know, for my gameplay, I prefer to have use single player settings. I leave pretty much all the other, you know, settings, boostings, the damage and all that, I leave it all default because I want to have an honest game without being completely overpowered. You also want to turn on use corpse locator if it's not already on, and you definitely want to put disable structure placement collision. That allows you to, when you're building, maybe something will clip into a rock or the terrain a little bit, it allows you to go ahead and place that regardless. It also allows you to get things really, really close to the walls in your structures and your bases, so definitely turn that on. The next one is allow unlimited respecs. Go ahead and check that box. That way, if you use a mind wipe tonic, you don't have to gain a level before you can respec. I tend to show creative mode. I don't play with creative mode, but sometimes I will enter creative mode just to go look around for something. If there was a bug in the game and the game crashes, you know, turn on creative mode and go find where you're, maybe you got lost or something. I won't necessarily admit that there have been times I've fallen asleep with a controller in my hand and I had to use creative mode to go find a wyvern flying way high on the map. Probably, what map did that happen on? I think I was playing on Ragnarok and I lost a wyvern, so I had to enter creative mode to go find the wyvern. It was pretty funny. It took me about an hour and a half to find the stupid thing, even with creative mode on. So now let's move on to the advanced rules, and some of these settings are up for your interpretation of how you want to play the game. First two things are allow cave building PvE and allow flyer carry PvE. And all this is going to do is, by default on PvE, when you turn that on the general settings, your flyers can't carry anything, and so that just lets you carry things. And in the cave building PvE, it just means that you get a chance to put a foundation down, a bed, maybe a box in a cave, or you can even, if you want, build a base inside of a cave. There's plenty of room actually in the super hard ice cave that you could totally start building a base in there and just have a really snowy, fun base right there. Moving on down, we're going to check non-permanent diseases, because let's make sure that when you respawn, you don't still have rabies, because let's face it, that's not fun. We're going to override structural platform prevention. We're going to increase PvE respawn interval. We are going to, let's see, what else do we have? Before we get anything down, all these main settings are all they're not going to apply to you if you're not playing on a server. We're going to now get into where you have a lot of the settings that you're going to want to look at and pay attention to, because these will greatly affect how you progress in the game, and it will take care of things like breeding and resource respawn rate and that kind of stuff. So I like to set lay egg interval to 0.5. That means the dinos will lay eggs just a little bit faster, but you won't have a constant string of eggs coming. And then the mating interval, turn that all the way down to 0.001. That means your dinos will effectively be ready to go ahead and mate again as soon as they're done mating the first time. You want to set the egg hatch speed and baby mature speed to 45, both of these, and then your baby food consumption speed to 0.25. And these three settings right here together mean that your baby dinos will hatch really fast, and then they will mature really fast, but they won't starve to death as long as you give them a little bit of food, or as long as you have plenty of food in a feeding trough, because the babies, as soon as they get out of baby stage into juvenile stage, then they will start feeding from a feeding trough. I set my resource respawn period down to 0.3. This just means that the resources will respawn just a little bit faster, not crazy fast. And, you know, if you have a good number of trees or rocks or berries or bushes or whatever around your base, that they'll go ahead and respawn. And so you don't have to keep going further and further and further out to find more resources. And these next few settings are pretty specific, and I will give you a little tip on how to get around some of what happens when you do these settings. But set these just like you see them here, 0.012, 10, and 0.015, because what happens is this will allow you on most dinos to go ahead and get a 100% imprint as they are growing up. Now keep in mind that because they are maturing at a really, really rapid pace, you're going to be doing imprinting. That's the only thing that you're going to be doing with these settings. But it means that you can raise up, let's see, for instance, I raised up an army of megatheriums for the broodmother on a previous playthrough in about an hour and a half. Now that's not leveling them or anything, but that is breeding and raising and imprinting. It took me about an hour and a half to get 20 megatheriums bred, imprinted, and ready to go into battle. One thing I also like to change, and this is mainly for the stream, or not the stream, but for video recording, it is much nicer to record video and gameplay during the daytime than the nighttime. So I just kind of offset. I make the nighttime go 1.5, I make the daytime go half speed. That way there's a little bit longer time. I do go ahead and set the spoiling time to 2. That just gives me a little bit longer before resources spoil. And then I've got corpse decomp time at 6. That means that if it takes me a long time to go find my corpse locator, that I will still have it. And then I will turn this down to 0.5. That just means that wherever I build my base, the resources will respawn reasonably close to where the base is without having a tree respawn right in the middle of my base, and also without me leaving a huge swath of harvested area that is now just a barren wasteland. I will go ahead and set crop growth speed to 2 and crop decay speed, keep that at default. And let's see, I think outside of that, all of these settings are going to be normal. And the only other thing that you're probably going to want to look at is to show floating damage text, allow custom recipes, and allow raid dino feeding. If you make it all the way to extinction, it just helps because now your Titans that you might tame, the Ice Titan, the Desert Titan, and the Forest Titan, those 3 will actually heal up in between fights with the King Titan for the different levels. So those things, again, all of these settings here are pretty much up to you. Oh yeah, we're gonna make it all the way back down to the bottom. And the last 2 settings that I would change, I've tinkered with these off and on a little bit. I've settled on, I like a loot quality for both supply crates and fishing of 2. I had it set to like 3.5 at one point, and I was getting stuff that was way too overpowered, and it completely took some of the fun out of the game because now there's hardly any challenge. But if you set it to 2, that gives you a little bit of an edge over just the standard vanilla default settings. You can end up with slightly better loot from both fishing and supply crates, a little bit easier, and then you don't have to spend so much time, since you're by yourself, hunting through the caves and hunting through the various places and supply crates and loot drops and all that to get decent quality gear. So there you have it, guys. That's my settings for Ark Survival Evolved on a PS4 in 2024 with playing a single-player PvE mode game. If you have any ideas about how you like to set up the game so that you can enjoy it, go ahead and drop those in the comments. Also, I do have a link in the video description for my spreadsheet that I have with all the default settings marked and the things that I've changed it to. So go ahead and download that. That way you have a record and you're not wondering like me, like, oh, what was the default setting on this one? You'll have a handy-dandy spreadsheet ready to go. But with that, I am the dad who plays things. I hope you enjoy playing Ark Survival Evolved and that these settings help you enjoy it even more. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, give me a like on the video, and hit that notification bell so you know anytime I release a new video, and I will see y'all in the next video. Take it easy, everybody.